You need to be watching Shogun. Like, right now. Like, turn this video off and go watch Shogun. Go! Run!
Think of a big black man chasing you! Well, he's not racist.
Eh? Some of you are still here. Don't follow directions very well, do you little rascals? Perhaps you just need some more persuading. Alright then. Let's talk Shogun, and why you, yes you, should be watching. Regardless of your background, your interest, whether or not you think this show is for you. This is a show for everyone, to be enjoyed by everyone, that everyone should see. So come, let's take a journey into FX's new and exciting epic, Shogun. So according to Google, Shogun is currently sitting at number 8. Number 8 on the currently streamed shows right now, according to Google. And I don't know if that's following because I haven't been really keeping up with that. I mean, it is on episode 6 now. It just came out today. Oh, got me so hyped. Well, I had to go ahead and do the video because goddamn, this show is good. There's definitely two primary demographics that I think this show is gonna target most. Weebs, because we like our Japanese shit, obviously. Not that I'm a weeb. And two, definitely your Game of Thrones type fans. People are gonna like that political intrigue. Who, if you liked the fact that Game of Thrones had a bunch of different characters from different factions all conspiring against each other, playing the political mind games, warring, and that constant grappling for power and control, then you're gonna like Shogun, because it takes kind of that style of storytelling with multiple characters that we're following, some that are more main characters than others, not unsimilar from something like Game of Thrones, but it's set in a real period of time. But nonetheless, the characters are still extremely compelling, in my opinion, more so. But I'm also not the biggest Game of Thrones fan, so take anything I say on that with a grain of salt. But what I did like about it is that political intrigue and the dynamics of how the kingdoms work, and getting to get into the societal kind of boundaries and rule sets that they're competing and playing with, and using both to their advantage and limited by. You know, that's something we see in Shogun as well, where there is this power imbalance left by the ruler of Japan's passing, and there are 4 people who have been put in charge that are sharing the power to try to keep peace, which of course immediately is going to lead to power grabs as they're trying to run the country until the ruler's heir is old enough to take over, because he's just a child at this time in the story. But what I really like is seeing how they're playing this game within the confinement of their culture, their societal norms, their political rules, their societal rules, the beliefs that they hold. It plays a very big part in the way the story goes. While there are a multitude of characters that we follow throughout the series, I would say there are 3 in particular that I would really call the leads of the show. And I figure we might as well start with the man that the show is really impacted the most by, that the events of the story happening within it all revolve around and are influenced by. And that would be Lord Yoshi Toranaga, played by Hiroyuki Sanada, who, can I just say, is as amazing as ever in this. It doesn't matter what film, show, whatever I see him in, he always does a fantastic job. And I really like that in this series, he's really getting an opportunity to take the lead and just give a fantastic performance and have well-deserved spotlight put on him.
He is one of those guys who I think a lot of people in the West would, you recognize him when you see him. You're like, oh, it's the angry dude from The Last Samurai. And he was that for me a long time. And, you know, over the years, he's continued to pop up in more and more things for a long time, continually cast in that role of like, we need an angry, tough Japanese man. But as he's gotten older and we started to see him kind of take on more of these wise, where you're kind of in the last years kind of their journey and their struggle, and he's played that absolutely fantastic. And this is just a prime example of the absolute talent that he has being able to be put on full display. And his character really is the driving force of the events happening in the story, as the main plot and main conflict of Shogun is the rest of the Council of Regents turning against Toranaga. They know how much respect he commands from the people of Japan. It's both from the influential members down to the soldiers and the citizens. He is very well respected. He's the kind of guy who can get people to follow them and motivate people to his cause. And he's a very devout protector of the air. And he is very determined to uphold the peace that their former ruler had hoped that they would find in his passing, and to protect the heir until he's old enough to take the throne, which is a problem for the other people who want power, because when you're trying to manipulate and take control of a government for yourself, you don't want the honorable guy standing guard, keeping you from doing whatever the hell you want to do. So he is an immediate threat to the other regents. Mostly Ashido, who is definitely this dude. First of all, the actor's doing a fantastic job of being just absolutely perfectly hateable. You know those characters where it's like they just annoy the shit out of you, but it's because of a good performance, and he is a compelling antagonist throughout the story. He is, like Toranaga, a master of playing the political game and wielding the rules of their society in his benefit, using it to basically hold people hostage in places where they're not behind chains, or to push people to do what he wants them to do. He is a master of wielding influence and wielding people's beliefs and using their honor and things against them. And he knows that Toranaga is his main threat, and so he aligns himself with the other regions who are also against him for their own motivations. Two of them mostly because they're being influenced by the Portuguese, which is a big thing in the story, and especially as we talk about John Blackthorne in a bit. But the Portuguese are kind of the first ones making contact with Japan and bringing their version of Catholicism over and trying to control and influence the people of Japan. And two of these regions have aligned themselves with the Christians and are being manipulated and kind of puppets on the council for them to some degree. And then you have Ishido, who isn't aligned with them and is more just there for his own power grab, as well as the other member of the five regents, who I think is himself also just kind of there for power. He's not aligned with the Portuguese or the Catholics, and is aligned with Ishido only because he currently views Toranaga as a bigger threat, as they're all kind of being manipulated to see him as the main threat, even though they should probably be looking over here at Ishido, who most likely will eliminate them as soon as his biggest opponent is out of the way.
But as fantastic as Hiroyuki Sanada's performance as Lord Toranaga is, the show is nothing without our vessel for the viewer and weeb discovering Japan has more issues than he thought, John Blackthorne. John is... John's a mess, but a very likable mess. He is a totally not pirate who has basically just been sailing on this journey to Japan, raiding and just generally fucking with the Portuguese. This man is full Protestant, down with the church, day one, blast him, hate him, ride till he dies, fuck the Portuguese. Pretty much his only moral compass in life is, how can I make their lives worse? And he tries to do a good job of it. And he apparently used to do a good job of it. We don't really know, because when we catch up with him in the story, he's pretty much got his entire crew stranded and lost on their way to Japan, because they know, or they've heard that the Portuguese have been... What the fuck is going on there? They've heard that the Portuguese have made contact with the Japans, as he calls them, and have been established here. And as a Protestant and day one, number one hater of the Catholic Church, Blackthorn can't stand for that. So his plan is to roll up into the Japans and cause as much havoc for the Portuguese as he can, and make headway for England to do what they do best, and colonize. So John Blackthorne is not exactly the best person in the world, but he's a great character, and it works really well, the fact that his main contrast with both Toranaga and the Japanese culture that he is getting exposed to throughout the story is that he will do anything to survive. This man will be as tough or as much of a bitch as he needs to be to get through the day. His only goal is to survive and be free. That is what matters to him, and he will do anything to achieve that goal. And it really comes into conflict with the very, not only the honor of and rules of the society that he's being exposed to. His main conflict comes into the fact that he values life, his own life specifically, above all else. That is what matters to him, to continue to make it to another day. And he is put in direct collision with this culture that death is something that they view as always coming, whether it's, the natural disasters that they face, the war, the hard times. Death is very inevitable, and they have accepted that. And in their culture and their laws, death can be dealt for transgressions that we definitely would not think death is deserving of. And that really starts to weigh on Blackthorne as he is forced to be a part of the things going on, as Toranaga takes him in because he has an interest in him as someone that the Portuguese want, and he wants to know why and wants to see how he can use him, because the Portuguese and their Japanese surrogates really don't like Blackthorne. They hate him as much as he hates them, and they would very much like him gone. And Toranaga sees this as a tool that he can use, because Toranaga, again, is very, very good at playing games. So he's very smart and very calculating. A little bit of that clip where we were showing Ishido earlier as part of like a ruse that Toranaga actually plays to get himself out of the city, and out from under the thumb of Ishido, where he's been basically being held captive. And so he's very good at using whatever he can to his advantage, and John is something he feels as though he can use. I really like that with him. He is definitely not, if you saw the trailers for this and thought we were getting like another white savior type story, fret not, because John ain't saving nobody. Well, technically he does save a couple people in the story, but he got enough of his own issues. He's lucky if he gets through this alive himself. He is a very troubled person, and it works well because in every conflict that he has with other characters, with their beliefs, with their mindset. It's nothing is ever portrayed as one side being right or wrong, which is something I like. Where John himself is a flawed individual, and we see that. We see him say things that make him kind of a dick sometimes, and you know that he has a bad history and has done bad things. But you also may not 100% agree with what you're seeing from this culture and some of the things that they're doing. So it puts it in a place where we can have discussions about the things going on in this story without too much of this side is clearly right and that side is clearly wrong in this thing. Nothing in the story so far is really all that black and white. People are doing what they think is best. And even in factions where there's corruption, you have people who genuinely do believe in the things they're doing. Even with the Portuguese church and all the corruption going on there and the things that they're doing for the government, you do have certain members of it who do genuinely believe that they're trying to do some good and see the actions that they're taking as a necessary evil for the greater good of their cause. That's a big thing throughout this story. And John is just kind of being pulled along here and there by both sides, trying to find his way, throughout this tale and trying to survive and, I wouldn't say fully embrace this culture, but he's kind of being forced to be a part of it as Toranaga eventually gives him positions of authority and has him lead the Canyon Battalion and provides him with a home and servants and not really a consort, yeah, that's what she is, who absolutely adore her, by the way. There's a huge focus of Mariko, who is our other main lead, is definitely Blackthorn's love interest, but I gotta say, his little consort wife, not really wife, but she running the house, she try things, she's absolutely adorable. The scene where he's having the standoff and she gets him to give up the guns and then she points it at the motherfucker and is like, I think you should leave now. Absolutely adorable. And her kind of embracing life with John and kind of getting to see the best in him, just like Mariko and Toranaga, is really wholesome as these people are slowly throughout the story just trying to understand each other and where they're coming from, and a lot of philosophical debate going on between them and their ideas about life and death especially, and what they think they should be doing with their time here and the things that are weighing them down, those burdens that they're trying to deal with. Blackthorn is a very good wall for the ideas of the story to be thrown at, and for some of them to stick and for some of them to shatter and fall away. And I think one really good thing that this story does is the story does not, again, make a lot of conclusions of what's right and what's wrong, and it leaves a lot of that up to you. It leaves it up to you to decide how you feel about these characters and the things they do, and what and who you want to side with and who you want to root for. And even characters that are also looking after themselves, have good and bad. I think his name is Yoshibe. I think that's the first one. It's his village that Blackthorn gets taken in initially. He's one of my favorite characters in the story. I think he's hilarious. He's definitely playing both sides, and he's fucked up. He's got this weird fascination with death where he literally boils a man alive in the first episode. Yeah, boils alive, where the whole town is listening to him scream, and it's absolutely crazy. And I like the opening shot when Blackthorn's brought him. He's sitting there, all stands up, and the rain's come down. It's just badass. Point is, even he is a character where he's got a lot of common with Blackthorn, where he has his pride and he wants to survive, but then he's trying to play this game of honor and rules as well, and playing both sides, and even Toranaga knows it, but he also sees him as valuable, so there's a lot of back and forth there, and it's all really well done. Nothing else. The political games of intrigue, if that's something you enjoyed or something like Game of Thrones, you will not be disappointed because they do such a good job. The writing is so excellent, and the storytelling, and you're just hooked immediately. Like these are hour-long episodes, and when I started watching, the first five were out. I stayed up to like 7:30 in the morning, binge watching the hell out of it. Like I don't feel like there are many moments in the show where your time is wasted, and it's also intriguing, even down to just the most absurd things. One big example, which highlights the main kind of conflict ideologically between Blackthorn and this culture, is he is gifted this pheasant that Tornaga kills during a hunt, and he wants to show everybody his weird ass British, I'm gonna let this thing rot and then form a stew type thing, and he hangs it up outside the house, and everybody in town absolutely hates this. It's disgusting. It's sitting up there rotting. They're miserable. They don't want to smell or see this dead, stinking pheasant. But in trying to keep them from taking it down, because he knows that they're not going to like it being up there initially, he says, "No touch, die" in Japanese. And he is not thinking about it as a literal thing. The moment he saw this, it was pretty evident to me what was coming. And so later, no one eats the stew, but he still has it in there. It's just getting worse and worse. People can't take it. And there's this gardener who he has bonded with, who's in charge of the garden in his home. And he decides that he's already sick. He's already not doing great. It would be his honor to die to rid the people of the burden of this pheasant.
What? I don't believe it! Kidding.
It's just as I expected.
And John comes back to find that Fuji has overseen basically his unaliving. And John is extremely pissed off about this because to him, it was just a pheasant. He did not care about it. It did not matter to him at all. But because of his words, the man had to die. And this really is kind of the breaking point for John, where he is just fed up with what he sees as these people having no value for life. He sees it as them just having no self-value, no self-preservation, and to them, death is that more of an inevitable thing and something that they face with courage and honor and duty. And to him, it's something that should be avoided and that we should try to make the most out of life. And that conflict continues to rage on even as the series is still continuing at the point it is now.
The final and my personal favorite of the main trio is Mariko. She's kind of the middle ground between the two spectrums that are Lord Toranaga and John Blackthorn, where we see her kind of pulled throughout the series between her duty and the feelings that she begins to develop for John. She is a really troubled character, dealing with shame and grief and loss due to the actions of her father, and constantly remarks throughout the series about continuously awaiting death and constantly wanting to be granted permission to unalive herself. And as the series goes on, she's really conflicting point between the two, where she believes very strongly in honor and shame and duty, and is constantly having those discussions with John about how death is just an inevitable thing that they all have to accept. But we get glimpses of her imagining another life where she actually is living for once, when her and John talk about what they would do on a night out in London when the two of them share moments together. You can see that there's a part of her that spending time with him is reminded of the things that she appreciates in this world, and
what she would like to live for. She's a really complex and really relatable character, as we all feel the weight and guilt of our actions. We feel the heavy burden of the things that we've had to endure and go through, and we all suffer fighting our own battles in our own way. But Mariko does her best to put on a brave face and serve her duty, and both as a translator to John Blackthorne and as a servant of Lord Toranaga. And she is a really strong character that's fighting these unbelievable weight and battles, and it definitely feels like Toranaga has a plan for her. I think there's more to what happened with her father, as he hints at the end of episode 6, where her father's intentions were never to leave her alone and in shame, but to create a scenario for her to fight and keep up the battles that he himself would never be able to finish. And I think Toranaga is trying to bring that out of her, trying to help her find herself. And I think the path forward is a middle ground between the two, to do things with the honor and duty that she holds dear, but also to remember to fight for the things that she cares about and to find a way to live and make it meaningful. And I think that's this character arc that she's moving towards, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out. I think her husband, while a fucking dick, is probably a little bit more complicated than it seems. I mean, I don't think there's any complicated excuse for abusing your partner, so he can still go fuck himself, but he's definitely got some jealousy going on, and I can't say I blame him because it's pretty fucking obvious, but his actions are reprehensible nonetheless. But I really enjoy Mariko and her dynamic with both sides. The show as a whole is just full of really fun and intriguing characters across the board. Her husband's grandfather, Toranaga's lifelong general who's been there, I really like him a lot. I think Sugiyama, is that his name? I think that might be his name. Kashigi is one of my absolute favorite characters. Because it took me so long to record this, I've now seen episode 7, and him ranting about how no matter where he turns, death is just waiting for him. He survives a cliff. Here's more death. He gets to Osaka, due for death, escapes that. Well, it looks like he's still gonna die, and he's just, I love his chaotic energy all throughout the series. He's a funny dude. I like him a lot. I like his dynamic with John throughout the series as well. Fuji just continues to be one of my favorite parts. She has a line in this episode that I don't remember it exactly, but it was along the lines of, we do what we can when we can, and all we can do is hope it's enough. And I really like that, and I think that's something we can all take as really good advice in our own lives. So much of the world as we see through this series is out of our control. Even when we do our best and put everything in place for success, we can be blindsided by life, nature, circumstance. It can tear through everything that we have planned. But all we can do is continue to do our best in the face of all of that and hope that one day it's enough. And I continue to love Fuji. She's such a great character, and this whole series is full of them. I think beyond just being a really cool period piece and political intrigue, I think there's some good lessons and meaning to take away from this show. And it's that life is rough and it's complicated, and we're constrained by so many situations, circumstance, rules, so many things that create obstacles for us. But we continue to push forward and navigate them and find our place in all of that. And it's not always going to be pretty. It's going to be rough. But we keep holding out for a future that we believe will make it all worth it. And I think that's the point of this series. And I can't wait to see where it goes. We got 3 more episodes. Shogun Tuesday is real, and I can't wait for the next one. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think about the series, what
where you think it's going to go, your favorite characters, what you've taken away from it so far. I think there's a lot of good things that this series has to offer, and I hope that it really does make a cultural impact and a lasting impression on TV and art as a whole, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm hopeful that it's going to end strong. So far it hasn't let down for me, so let's hope it keeps going. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, all that cool stuff, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your week. My name is Teller, aka That Hero Fury, and I'll see you guys next time.